Honorable Senators, I rise today to speak to C-7 and the message received from the House of Commons. Senators, during COVID time, we are all working under very difficult circumstances, and especially our staff and the Senate staff are even working under tougher conditions. The Legal Committee was formed on November 18th, 1920. And on the 19th of November, I received a call from the leader of the Senate, Senator Gold, that the leaders had agreed that the Legal Committee could start a pre-study on C-7 on November 23rd, a few days later. This was a very short timeline. I want to today acknowledge the support Mr. Blair Armitage, Clerk Assistant of the Senate Committees, and Shala Anwar, the Principal Clerk of the Senate Committees, gave our committee. They put to our disposal all the staff and all the resources that they could for us to carry out our work, and I thank them for that. The clerk of the committee, Mark Palmer, did a yeoman's job on organizing 81 witnesses on few days' notice to be heard in 5 days. And then later on, on February 1st, 2nd, 3rd, we heard from 66 witnesses. I would like to acknowledge the hard work of our clerk, Mark Palmer, whose dedication and commitment were crucial as he successfully managed our work. I would also like to thank our clerks and administrative staff, this team of hard-working, devoted members who worked silently behind the scenes to facilitate our work. We could not have done our work without the continuous assistance of Joel Nadu, Evelyn Cote, Martiza Jean-Pierre, Laurie Meldrum, Debbie Larocque, Brigitte Martineau, and Elda Donnelly. I also want to thank the Chief Librarian and her staff, Heather Lang, for also giving us tremendous support. We had two amazing analysts, Julian Walker and Michaela Keenan-Peltier, who produced not one, but 2 reports besides supporting us on the study of C-7. Our analysts prepared 2 reports capturing everything we heard during the sessions and assisted us with the background analysis and ideas to help us navigate this critical and sensitive legislation. Many others have helped, and I sincerely apologize if I have missed anyone, and I express my absolute gratitude. Senators, I want to particularly thank the interpreters. This was a very difficult study for us. Imagine how much harder it was for the interpreters. And not only that, but we, as you know, senators, made available many witnesses that had challenges. And some witnesses, when they showed up to testify, there were challenges. And it is amazing how the interpreters would not let them leave. They worked hard with them so we senators could hear from all the witnesses who wanted to testify. I have really learned a very strong lesson that our interpreters are really exceptional. And at this COVID time, they're having a very difficult time, but they continue to work with us. And I thank them for that. I also want to thank the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Steering Committee, Senator Batters, Senator Campbell, Senator Dalphon, for tirelessly working on this bill, dealing with a very heavy schedule during the limiting circumstances of a pandemic lockdown, and trying to meet a tough deadline. Thank you, Honorable Senators. A big thank you goes to the Legal and Constitutional Affairs members and all senators for diligently studying this bill. I want to also thank the sponsor of the bill, Senator Petitclerc, and the critic, Senator Carignan. Senators, thank you for all the support you gave to the Legal and Constitutional Committee. I believe that these are tough issues in front of us, and we have all worked in the best way we can to serve Canadians. Because we know what this bill is about. It is about suffering and about death. Janet Hopkins argued in her letter to us, which we all received, what is considered an acceptable amount of suffering? And immediately the words of Jason LeBlanc came to mind. Mr. LeBlanc is a caretaker of his common law partner who is a maid applicant, and that said this at the hearings. It is not made by a doctor, your caregiver, your family, or by your government. The decision of MAID, the concept of assisted death, is about Canadians being able to grant themselves an end to suffering that they themselves deem intolerable. We all know, Senators, that MAID is a complicated topic with very real consequences on the lives of the most vulnerable Canadians. It intersects with healthcare, palliative care, mental illness, systemic racism, access to social services, but most of all, the right of a person to take ownership of how they live and how they die. Ms. Hopkins told us, and I quote, "It is not that we want to die, it is that the pain has taken away our will to live." Close quotations. Bearing such pain in mind, directed our committee study on Bill C-7. We heard from witnesses that were affected Canadians, leading university professors, medical practitioners, psychiatrists, legal experts, and from non-governmental agencies. In February, as I've already said, we heard from another 66 witnesses and received tens of thousands of submissions. With the help of our analysts and the committee, produced 2 reports over the course of our studies. In our studies, Senators, we realized that one aspect that was overlooked was in the bill might affect racialized Canadians. Sarah Jama in her strong testimony at the committee told us, and I quote, "Do not line up with the realities of classism, racism, and ableism in our country." Ms. Jama was justified in assuming this, as we came to learn when we received the government's gender-based analysis plus. The GBA plus should include a race-based analysis, but unfortunately this GBA did not. The reason was, as the Justice Minister Lametti explained, that there was no sufficient disaggregated data. I have to admit that I was left wondering how are legislators and parliamentarians supposed to take informed decisions and ensure that correct, meaningful policies are put in place without any data? How are we to solve our problems and prevent them from festering without any information? So I moved an amendment to include the collection of race-based data. Honorable Senators, I want to thank the Minister for supporting my amendment and by echoing our call for systemic collection and analysis of data on the race of all people who request and receive MAID. Many of you know that I was very hesitant to expand the amendment. And we had many discussions about this because I was worried that if I added any other group, this amendment would fail. So I did not want to expand the amendment beyond the collection of race-based data, as I was not sure that the government would accept it. That said, I was extremely overjoyed that the government, and especially Minister Lametti, took the important next step and made this amendment richer by adding the data collection respecting indigenous identity and disability of all people who request and receive MAID. I commend the statement by Minister Lametti in his speech announcing the government's expansion of my amendment. In it, he explains that the inclusion of indigenous identity and disability as well as race, and I quote, "It is important, especially and specifically, as we broaden the MAID regime to circumstances where death is not reasonably foreseeable in response to the Trushan decision, which creates the real possibility that people will seek and obtain MAID because of vulnerabilities in their lives, as opposed to their health conditions. I am grateful to the Senate for proposing this important legislative change." Close quotations. This amendment to Bill C-7 ensures that race, indigenous identity, and disability data collection of all people who request and receive MAID. In doing so, it also ensures that all parliamentarians know exactly who is being impacted by the expansion of the MAID regime. Honorable Senators, I have to share something with you. When I moved this amendment, I did not think that this amendment would pass. But the tremendous support that I have received from all of you, and I mean all of you, has truly, truly humbled me. I feel that we are one body that truly looks after the most vulnerable. And I salute you and I thank you. I very much appreciate the support you gave. Thank you very much.